There's this philosopher, French guy named Blaise Pascal. He's best known for this wager he wrote about, this bet that he wrote about. He said, imagine that you have to place a bet. You have to bet that either God is or God is not. And you can't get out of the bet because what you're betting is your very life. And so not betting is pretty much the same as just betting that God is not. So you got to place your bet. And he reasoned his way through this. He thought his way through what's the best bets to place. I'm going to add some of my own stuff in here, but this is the gist of it. If you bet that God is, that hope is real, that redemption is possible, that new life is available, and that love will win the day, and God is, then you get a world where hope is real, and redemption is possible, and new life is available, and love wins the day. If you bet that God is and God is not, well, you have, to be fair, wasted all of the energy that you put into trying to live in that world, but at least you've gotten to live as though God is. You've gotten to live as though hope is real and redemption is possible and new life is available and love will win the day. And that's pretty good. If you bet that God is not and God is not, well, then you haven't lost anything, except you haven't gotten to live as if hope is real and redemption is possible and new life is available and love will win the day. And if you bet that God is not and God is, well, then you've lost out on the reality of hope being real and redemption being possible and new life being available and love winning the day. So Pascal said, the better bet is to bet that God is. The best thing that can happen is amazing. And the worst thing that can happen is pretty good. That kind of reasoning doesn't satisfy a lot of people. It feels a little weird. It feels like it's turning faith into an intellectual exercise. If I can just figure out the math, I'll be okay. And a lot of people, don't necessarily believe in the idea of a God who just wants you to do math. Some of us don't believe in a God who wants us to do math at all. So Pascal goes on. He writes more. He writes a bit of his little book that most people don't read. Imagine that you're the kind of person who knows that it would be better to put your bets on God, to put your bets on hope being real and redemption being possible and new life being available and love winning the day. Imagine that you know that you should put your bet there. But you can't quite do it. You can't quite figure out how to make that work. You can't quite get into it. What should you do then? And Pascal, a philosopher, a smart guy, someone whose arguments have withstood the tests of time, someone who very smart people still talk about today, says, if you're in that situation, you should fake it till you make it. Pretend. Make believe. Do the stuff that you think you would do if you believed that. Now, in his example, that's go to worship. He was Catholic, so it was go to Mass and take the holy water and light the candles and say the prayers and do the stuff. For us, it might be a little bit different. Certainly, go to worship. Show up for the church. Pray. Read Scripture. Go out and serve. Go and hope. Go and try to live into redemption. Go and try to live in into new life. Go and love. And if you do that, you just might find yourself starting to believe. If you fake it, you just might make it. We're finishing up our little sermon series on doubt today. We started with, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. I've got some faith, but it doesn't seem to be enough to help me through this. And I've got some doubt, and I'm just not sure. I need this part fixed. Help my unbelief. And we moved into God being in the silence. Not seeing the big flashy things, the earthquakes and the fires and the big winds, but having to wait and listen for God when everything was calm and quiet, too calm and too quiet. And we talked about the dark night of the soul, the depths of our despair, those times when all we can do is say, if there's a God, how could the world be like this? If hope is real, how could the world be like this? If love wins the day, how could the world be like this? There are times when all we can do is shout at a God who we're not sure is there. And we talked about how God can take that, and God can hear that, and God can be with us in that. And we talked about glimmers of hope. Those times when all we have is a little bit of faith, a little piece of glitter in the dark, a little something reflecting some of the light of God's love, and how when we see that, we shouldn't dismiss that, but hold on to that and nurture it and see if we can grow it. And now we have this idea that sometimes what we have to do, what we can do, our superpower, is stepping into faith. See, faith is not certainty. Faith is not a for sure thing. Faith is trust. And trust is a risk. Faith is loyalty, and loyalty is a risk. Faith is love, and love is a risk. There is some putting ourselves out there. And sometimes the most we can do is put ourselves out there. We have two readings today. In our first reading, Abram, he's not Abraham yet. Abram is at home with his family, with his parents, in the same town he grew up in the same house he grew up in. He knows this place. He knows how stuff works. He knows who he is. And then God calls to him. Abram, leave pretty much everything you've known and follow me. I'm going to lead you into another land, a land that's going to be strange and sometimes hostile, and I'm going to make of you a great nation, and all of the nations of the world will be blessed through you. And Abram goes. Abram takes the leap, and it is not a small thing. Abram says, this is what I know, and this is what is possible. I'm going to go for what is possible. In our second story, Jesus is walking along the shore calling to people. People who have lived here all their lives, who know this sea, who know their job, who are the children of fishermen, who are fishermen themselves, who, if they have kids, will have kids who are fishermen. They know the sea, they know the boat, they know the fish. And Jesus comes along and says, "Follow me. I'll make you fishers of men, fishers of people, fishers of all those folks out there." And they go. They say, "This is what I know, and this is what is possible. I'm going to go for what is possible." And I want to be clear. Neither Abram nor the disciples have it easy. They are taking a risk. They are putting themselves out there. They are saying to themselves and to others, hope is real, and I'm going to follow hope. Redemption is possible, and I am going to go into redemption. New life is available. I'm going to step into new life. Love is going to win the day. I'm going to go for love. But it's going to be hard. You can read Genesis. You can read the Gospels. You can read the stories outside of Scripture about the disciples. They do not have easy lives. It is hard. And it is strange. Sometimes it is disheartening. Sometimes they are on the verge of giving up. But they do it all the same. Sometimes I am convinced they have to pretend. They have to make believe. They have to say, I'm not sure that I can do this, but I will pretend that I can do this. And if I pretend hard enough, maybe I can do this. Maybe God will come and be with me and help me through this. And that's a theme again and again throughout Scripture. That's a theme again and again throughout history. That is a theme again and again through our lives. It is not always certain. It is not always indisputable. There is sometimes doubt. Even in the best of times, there is that little bit that says, I'm not sure that I can do this. Sometimes our unbelief needs help. Sometimes everything is too still and too silent. Sometimes we are in the dark night of the soul. Sometimes all we have is a little glittery piece of faith in the darkness. But in those moments, even when we are not sure, we can start to run. We can start to run, and we can look out at the chasm of doubt in front of us, and we can take that leap. We can take that jump. We can take that chance, relying on God, trusting in God, being faithful to God, loving God, putting ourselves out there for the sake of what is possible, for the sake of the idea that hope is real, that redemption is possible, that new life is available, that love will win the day. And if we do that, if we take that chance, if we take that leap of faith, then it just might come to be that hope will be real, that redemption will be there, that new life will be abundant, that love will, in fact, win the day. And in so doing, we might build our faith a little more each day until we really, truly, and totally believe, until we really, truly, and totally have faith, until we really, truly, totally can put our lives in the hands of God, and God can remake us and the world into something wonderful.